Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tackling one of the most fascinating puzzles in the modern business world. I want you to think about your typical day for a second. From the moment you wake up and check your phone, to your commute, right down to the shows you stream at night, you are bombarded with literally thousands of brand messages. It's constant. So the core problem is this. How on earth do modern brands actually cut through all that deafening media noise to make you listen, remember, and ultimately buy? Well, today, we're decoding the anatomy of a campaign to understand the exact science behind integrated marketing communications. So let me ask you a question I know you've heard before. What's in your wallet? The moment I say those words, I bet you instantly thought of Capital One, right? It's a completely iconic catchphrase. But what's genuinely brilliant about Capital One isn't just that they have a catchy slogan. It's how they've used it as the backbone for a totally unified message. Whether you're watching a massive big-budget TV commercial, scrolling past an Instagram ad, or reading a piece of direct mail, that exact same message hits you. By coordinating their messaging across every TV and digital platform, they've achieved something most companies only dream of: near universal brand awareness. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for The Explainer. We'll start with 1, the need for IMC. Then 2, the 5 promotion tools. 3, mapping the customer journey. 4, designing the ultimate message. And finally, 5, setting budgets and strategies. Starting right off with Section 1, the need for IMC, and how brands are solving the fragmented media problem. Now, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by disjointed ads across streaming platforms, social media, and physical stores, you are definitely not alone. I mean, companies used to just blast a single commercial on network television and call it a day. But today, consumers are fragmented across a million different digital and physical channels. If a brand's TikTok says one thing but their in-store promotion says another, you just get confused. To solve this, companies use integrated marketing communications, or IMC. Basically, this is the careful coordination of all communication channels to deliver a clear, consistent, and compelling brand message. IMC is absolutely crucial because it ensures that every single brand contact point, from a fleeting mobile ad to a deep conversation with a salesperson, delivers the exact same positive message. It creates a totally seamless experience for us as buyers. Moving on to Section 2, the 5 promotion tools. This is essentially the marketer's arsenal. You can think of the promotion mix kind of like the instruments in an orchestra. You got advertising, which is fantastic for reaching the masses at a really low cost per exposure. Then there's sales promotion, which provides short-term incentives like a 20% off discount code to encourage you to buy right now. Personal selling is the most expensive tool, but it's highly effective for driving immediate one-on-one relationships. Public relations builds up a positive, overarching corporate image. And direct marketing targets specific individuals to get an immediate, measurable response. But the real magic? That happens when all these tools play together in harmony. And a brilliant real-world example of that harmony is the James Beard Foundation's Open for Good campaign. Following the pandemic, the independent restaurant industry was in absolute crisis. But they didn't just use one tool to try and fix it. They flawlessly blended public relations by bringing in celebrity chefs like Padma Lakshmi. They used direct and social media marketing with custom QR codes. And they layered in sales promotion through a partnership with Stella Artois, where a portion of bottle sales went directly back to the foundation. It was an incredible integration of multiple tools to drive immediate, short-term engagement while ensuring the long-term survival of independent restaurants. Which brings us to Section 3, mapping the customer journey. This is all about moving the audience to action. So let's shift our perspective entirely to you, the consumer. Marketers don't just throw messages out into the void hoping something sticks. They meticulously map out our psychological reactions over time using something called the 5 A's. It starts with basic awareness. You simply know a product exists. Then comes appeal. You decide you actually kind of like it. You ask to engage with the brand to learn more. And eventually you act by actually pulling out your wallet and making a purchase. The holy grail for marketers, though, is that 5th step, advocacy. That's when you love the product so much you tell your friends and become a vocal champion for it. A great IMC campaign nudges you gently all the way down this path. Another classic way to look at this is the AIDA model: attention, interest, desire, and action. Think about a brand like Geico. First, they use an unexpected, quirky little gecko to grab your attention. Then, they hold your interest with a funny, relatable storyline. They build your desire by constantly reminding you that 15 minutes could save you 15% on your car insurance. And finally, they drive the action of getting you to go online and actually buy a policy. It's quite literally a highly structured psychological funnel. Let's look at Section 4, Designing the Ultimate Message. Here, we're talking about content, structure, and format. When marketers are sitting down to design the actual content of a message, they generally choose between three core appeals. Rational appeals speak straight to your cold, hard logic. They show you exactly how a product will directly benefit you, save you cash, or solve a problem. Emotional appeals bypass logic and aim right for the heart, using joy, humor, or even fear to trigger a purchase. And moral appeals target your sense of what is right and proper, often urging support for social causes. Truly unforgettable ads creatively blend these together to persuade us. For instance, a very powerful real-world application of a moral appeal is Google's campaign for its real-tone camera software. Historically, early camera film chemistry and later digital technologies weren't always optimized to accurately capture diverse skin tones, particularly for people of color. So Google introduced software specifically designed to correct this and accurately highlight the nuances of all skin tones. In their marketing for this, Google utilized a moral appeal to directly address that historic market exclusion. By doing so, they positioned their campaign as an effort to promote social responsibility and a more equitable marketplace within the broader tech industry. Now, once that message is designed, it actually has to be delivered. And here we see the stark contrast between personal and non-personal communication channels. Non-personal channels are things like major broadcast media, staged events, or even the general vibe and atmosphere of a store. They carry messages without any personal contact. Personal channels, on the flip side, involve direct communication, like word of mouth. What's super fascinating is how these two interact. Marketers often use non-personal mass media to target opinion leaders, basically influencers. Those opinion leaders then step between the mass media and their followers, translating the brand's big overarching message into personal recommendations through buzz marketing. Now, what's really interesting about this next section, Section 5, Setting Budgets and Strategies. Let's talk about funding the campaign. Because look, you can have the absolute best message in the world, but if you don't fund it and deploy it strategically, no one will ever see it. Let's contrast the two primary promotional deployment strategies, push and pull. A push strategy is heavily focused on business-to-business, or B2B. This is where the producer directs its marketing activities, like trade promotions, straight to the retailers. They are essentially incentivizing retailers to stock the product and push it onto the consumer. A pull strategy is business-to-consumer, B2C. Here, the company spends heavily on advertising directly to you, the final consumer. If it works, you walk into a store, demand the product, and essentially pull it through the distribution channel. Of course, to execute either a push or a pull strategy, you have to set a budget. Marketers might use the affordable method, which is literally just basing the budget on whatever cash the company happens to have on hand, or the percentage of sales method, based on revenue forecasts. Some use the competitive parity method to just blindly match whatever their rivals are spending. But the most logical and rigorous approach, without a doubt, is the objective and task method. This forces a company to define specific goals, figure out the exact tasks needed to achieve them, and then rigorously cost out those tasks. Let's see how budgeting plays out at the highest possible levels in the legendary Cola Wars. When we analyze the data tracking ad-to-sales ratios, we see both Coca-Cola and PepsiCo heavily utilize a percentage of sales strategy, consistently dedicating a specific percentage of their massive revenues back into advertising. Over a 5-year period, Coca-Cola averaged about 4.28%, while PepsiCo averaged roughly 10.83%. Because their baseline sales are so colossal, these seemingly small percentages translate into billions and billions of dollars of corporate competition. It's a prime example of how percentage-based budgeting fuels legacy brand rivalry. Now, look at this massive number. To put that in perspective, $1.5 billion, that's billion with a B, that is what Geico spent in a single recent year on advertising and promotions. This demonstrates the sheer awe-inspiring scale of the objective and task budgeting method. Geico's objective was to stand out in a deeply crowded, noisy market and achieve near-universal awareness. Their task was to absolutely flood the airwaves and digital channels with multiple quirky campaigns, including our friend the gecko. They calculated exactly what it would cost to dominate market share, and that cost was $1.5 billion. But hey, what if you don't have $1 billion lying around? Well, you have to rely on hyper-targeted strategies. Just look at Liquid Death. They're a canned water startup with the super aggressive tagline, "Murder Your Thirst." They sell water in these tall boy cans that look exactly like beer, targeting an edgy, environmentally conscious demographic. all while donating a portion of proceeds to ocean cleanup. It is a brilliant illustration of a targeted pull strategy. By pairing highly unique, humorous messaging with a very specific niche audience, they managed to cut right through the noise of those legacy beverage brands, and they did it without needing a multi-billion-dollar budget. So, we've covered the mechanics, the promotion tools, the deep consumer psychology, and the billions of dollars that go into integrated marketing communications. From Capital One's unified slogans to Google's moral appeals, these carefully structured messages surround us every single day. So, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Knowing how meticulously these campaigns are engineered to grab your attention and move you to action, how does the ethical power of the marketing messages you consume shape your worldview? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the messages around you and keep learning.